Welcome to Balance and Beyond, the podcast for ambitious women who refuse to accept burnout as the price of success. Here, we're committed to empowering you with the tools and strategies you need to achieve true balance, where your career, relationships, and health all thrive, and where you have the power to define success on your terms. I honour the space you've created for yourself today. So let's take a breath and dive right in. Welcome to Balance and Beyond. I have a very special guest joining me today, and this is take 7 of our attempt. So a beautiful example of done is better than perfect. We found a way to make the tech work. Welcome, the wonderful Claire. Lovely to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So Claire is a woman of many talents. I came across Claire as a kinesiologist who has an amazing skill set for tapping into energy. And I've brought Claire on the podcast because for me, she has a wonderful insight into not only is she one of us, as I just told her before, as in, and you'll hear a bit more about her in a minute, but she's got some really interesting perspectives on the career changes that she's made, how she juggles life, and also how she's opened up different modalities and different levels of intuition, which is something that many people in our world are interested in. So Claire, why don't you kick us off by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about you?
I studied kinesiology now for the last 14 years on this wonderful journey, and I went from student to practitioner to teacher to now kinesiology school owner, being the owner and founder of the Northern School of Kinesiology. So clearly I'm dedicated and very passionate towards something I love. But prior to that, believe it or not, I actually started my health journey in the nutrition industry. I was always curious about food and wanted to learn more, so I started studying nutrition via correspondence, but I found it a bit bland, or it missed some things, and then I went into naturopathy. Loved that. Found myself sitting teaching myself bio and chemistry, thinking, God, this is a bit boring, but working through it all the same. But also felt that there were key components missing. And I actually met someone who was studying kinesiology, or sports kinesiology at the time, to be precise. And she made it sound absolutely wonderful, to the point where I went, you know what, stuff it all. I'll just Google it, find an information evening, go to one. And this is the funniest thing. I'd never had a kinesiology session in my life, but I signed up on the spot for the course. I know, it always makes me laugh. And people go, how on earth did you do that? I go, it just felt right. I was there, I was listening to it, I watched the live demonstration and was blown away, and signed up and never looked back. And here I am 14 years later.
Yeah. And then before that, you obviously also had I don't know if I guess you'd call it a corporate career, but you had something different. You weren't working in an office. You were a little higher than that, weren't you? Sorry, terrible puns.
No, it was great. It was great. Yeah, believe it or not, I actually, I always had a passion for sports and arts and health as a kid. And so originally I went in to do interior design and visual merchandising. Straight out of school, I went straight into uni. And I didn't do what they call as, the gap year or backpacking overseas. And I found myself one day going, I want to travel the world, and I don't really want to have to struggle or pay for it or be in hostels. And so at the time, this is when Virgin first came to Australia. And at the time I thought, you know what, stuff it. I'll apply for a job at the airlines just as a joke, see if I get in and see how I go. Bang, I got in and I lived the very high life, unintended on that one, for a good 10 years, and I loved it. I made dear friends for life. I did get to travel the world, but I always was yearning for more. So that was actually where I was always studying as well as doing shift work. The funnily enough thing is I fell into that because colleagues would always come up to me explaining their health issues, and it was almost like I was an oracle at the time because I'd always read all these health magazines. And so I would sit there always going, well, try this, change this in your diet, and then introduce this sort of stuff. And I'll never forget, it was one crew member one day said to me, how do you know all this stuff? And I go, I just love reading about women's health and trying to understand more, and then I experiment on myself to find out what works and what doesn't. And she pauses and she looks at me and she goes, well, what the bloody hell are you doing here then? Like, why aren't you studying something else? And I went, you know what, you're right. And that's when I went off on my journey of really understanding health and wellness and really how we can benefit from it all.
I love that. So many of us have come to our craft in unorthodox ways, which is what makes it special. You know, like you said,
So
we're
true.
all our own best testimonial and own best guinea pigs. So how would you explain what kinesiology is? This is something that I'm like, well, you kind of rub points on your body and you turn yourself on, and I'm like, oh, this sounds a little X-rated. So for full disclosure, Claire's been teaching me kinesiology, and just like Claire, I've been doing it as a client or a patient for over 2 years now, and it's been mind-blowing, and it's something that I wanted to learn more about. It's the first modality that's really grabbed me. So Claire, how would you explain what it is? And I'm going to take your explanation and bank it for later.
Are you ready for this? This is my one-liner explanation before I give
Okay.
you what it's really about. So, what I liken it to is psychology for the body. That's what I call it.
Ooh, love that.
That's the one-liner. But on more, if you were to look up kinesiology from a dictionary terminology, it's the study of movement. And so originally it came from basically degrees in chiropractic and stuff overseas. So this is where they really put it into human movement and more chiropractic sort of background. But the form of kinesiology I do is actually called PKP kinesiology. And PKP kinesiology really looks at health, wellness, and human performance from a holistic perspective. And so what I mean by that is you look at many other modalities and they specifically cater to certain factors in the human body and healing. So for example, you would look at chiropractic or physio from supporting your body from a structural point of view. You would look at something like medicine and nutrition from like a biochemical point of view. And then you would look at things like yoga and Pilates and all that sort of stuff. You know, a lot of that can really come into spiritual as well as movement. Kinesiology brings in the entire pyramid of things, really being able to look at the body and how it's functioning from a mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual level. My point in that really is I basically get to use your muscles to talk to your body to find out where there is imbalances with your energy and ultimately how that comes up or how that is affecting or creating dis-ease in your body and issues with energy imbalances.
Basically makes you a mind reader. Or a body reader, and it's freaky as all hell when you sit there and you're like, I can't lie to Claire because my body's going to give me
No, you
away.
can't. The muscles don't lie, and that's the thing. Oh, look, I have been called by the locals here. They're like, oh, yeah, you're that witch. You're the one that does the witchy stuff. And I'm like, no. I go, this is where the human body's that amazing. I go, get to talk to your body, like by your muscles to find out what's going on. Where's the trauma? Where's the emotions? What stories are you telling yourself that is otherwise not allowing you to advance within all areas of your life? And I must say, it's pretty epic. There are honestly days where I'm like, no way. And even with my clients, they're like, no way. So it never gets old.
No, it never gets old. And nothing wrong with being a witch. I came back from when I came to see you in Melbourne. I was like, I feel like a bit more of a witch now. I'm like, yes, bring this on. What I know, Claire, you work with people from all kinds, obviously, but if you were to think of women in particular, like yourself, I know you've got a little one as well. The thought of having our body having any intelligence almost feels a little bit foreign because we are very stuck in our heads and very much logical, must make sense. How would you explain the wisdom that actually lies in the body and any challenges you've had to overcome in actually listening to it or learning to read it when, you know, we can all be quite heady and quite logical?
Yeah, well, good question. The human body is so innately intelligent that if you actually learn to understand the vehicle on which your soul is within, you'd realize you're actually more capable of the life that you create than you ever thought before. Here's a perfect example. Women today, or should I say, 99% of the society at the moment is stuck in sympathetic dominance. So, the dominant amount of people are stuck in fight and flight. And so when you have a woman in fight and flight, by nature, she should be beautiful, soft, flowy, intuitive, and she's able to shift and kick into gears if and when needed, not only just by hormonal cycles, but by her ability to approach life differently to men. And so what you notice in today's society, modern society has almost conditioned women to try and run at the same pace as a male in order to achieve. Genetically, this doesn't work for us. It goes against so many hormonal factors, and technically it goes against our beautiful way that we are designed. Women are highly intuitive. They are able to feel their way through things and be able to tap into inner reserves that at points in time it may feel like we're creating slowly, but if you look at it, women have the ability to be able to create life. How long does it take to do that? 9 to 10 months. Well, 10 months really by the time Bub's due. But it means that we have the ability to create just as powerfully and as beautiful as the opposite sex, but do it in our own unique way. And so what I've noticed in modern day society is that I think because women had to fight to be seen and heard and to be thought of as equal in the workspace, you think of the 60s, 70s and that, we had to do double the amount of work in order to show that we were valued. It's almost like now we're trying to uncondition that through generations that we've perhaps seen in our parents and learn that we don't have to fight. Everything doesn't have to be enforced every day. We can go back into flow. And so when we're enforced, as I said before, we disassociate from our feelings. And the human body has this wonderful system in it. It's called the interoceptive system. The interoceptive system is like a whole bunch of, how would I explain it, sensory system that's embedded in the body. And so the body's sensory network will always send messages to you explaining what it needs, and then your brain should be able to reenact, go and say, yep, I know what you need, and therefore we'll go and do something. At a basic level, you have sensors in most of your vital organs and in most of your systems. So your bladder has a sense in it, and it says, oh, I need a pee, sends a message to the brain goes, all right, we'll go to the toilet. Your stomach, when you're in tune with your body, I like that, will send a message to the brain and go, oh, I've eaten enough, I'm full, and the brain should send a signal and go, all right, we'll stop eating. That's when it works beautifully. Really, really busy people have disconnected from the system, and so they struggle to not only emotionally regulate, they struggle to know when they're hungry or when they're full. It's almost like actually use their elimination process properly, which means a lot of people don't go to the toilet properly. A lot of people can't understand basic intuitive or sensory cues. For example, of this person's making me uncomfortable. That doesn't feel right for me. I'm uncomfortable in this situation. And so the reason why I mention this is because when we're in tune with our body, your body will signal to you what feels right, what doesn't feel right. It'll send signals of, I'm full, I don't need to eat anymore, we need to go to the toilet, I can know when to sleep, I can know when to emotionally regulate myself. That's a beautiful, harmonized body. But most people, and particularly women, that are overcooked and who've forgotten how to shift into gears, they're disconnected from this wonderful sensory system that should tell them so many other wonderful moments on how to make decisions, how to navigate through life, and really how to use their body for best.
As you said, the amount of women that say to me, oh my gosh, it got to 5 o'clock and I realized I was busting for the toilet because they're completely disconnected and forgot to pee. I mean, seriously, of all the vitals, as you said, vital functions that our body holds, to forget to do that one because we're too stuck in our heads.
100%. Most people also forget to drink. So your brain requires fat and water in order to function. And most people, they will come into me for, say, if they've booked an early morning session, they haven't even drank any water. So you've gone through all of nighttime, you've come here in the morning, and basically now I'm not only dealing with a brain that is not kicked on, but I'm also dealing with muscles that don't respond that well because they can, how would I say, appear weak when they're dehydrated. Yeah, it's quite fascinating to realise how intelligent the human body is, but how society is so incredibly disconnected from it.
And it's interesting when you talk about having these other senses available in terms of intuition and how our body knows what it wants. And so many women come to me, and I'm sure you see them too, and like, oh, I'm at a crossroads and I can't make up my mind because I think I should want this. And deep down, my parents probably want me to have this. And my partner says I should do this. And society says that. And they're so full of shoulds that they've completely lost touch with what they truly want. Is that something you're seeing a lot too?
100%. God, I heard something a long time ago and they said, believe it or not, shoulds is linked to thyroid issues. Think about it, shoulds. So it's almost like when we're in shoulds or what ifs, every thought and process you have, this is probably where the body has a bit of a glitch. It's so wonderful and so amazing, but if you're constantly thinking all the time, guess what it does? It forgets to kick into gears. So overthinking will cause an issue with the hypothalamus gland. Shoulds will cause an issue with your thyroid. And so now certain signals of like I can sleep, I can wake up with ease, I can regulate my body temperature, have all gone out the window. And people will go, oh my God, I've got a structural problem. It's not. It's your mental and emotional state that have just created this entire kaleidoscope of issues.
Mm. And it's interesting you say that there is, we talk about disease and the body being dis-ease. And so many people go to pop a pill or rush to the physio or think it is structural, when certainly my journey and that of many of my clients, that there is always a mind, body, spirit component to most things, isn't there? So someone comes with a sore shoulder or sore hips. It's like, wonder what's stored in the hips. But people don't even realize, I mean, modern medicine is starting to catch up, or you could call it alternative medicine, whether it's acupuncture, but how different areas of the body, whatever ailments you have, can also be an indicator of something else going on apart from, like you said, structural.
100%. There's so many wonderful authors and good books that would even touch on this. So if people ever wanted to learn more, there are books like Annette Mintel, the body is the barometer of the soul, and she even like marks certain areas of the body. If there's issues going on there, it can relate to where you're at mentally, emotionally, and what's possibly happening in life. It's the same as Inia Segal and also Yvette Rose. They've written literally a library's worth of metaphysical books, and so when people think, oh my God, my shoulder's giving me grief, I better go see the physio or the osteo, it doesn't mean you always have a shoulder problem. It could be you are shouldering a lot in life and therefore you have an issue there, but your body's actually trying to get your awareness to deal with what's creating that, meaning what lifestyle patterns have you got? What is your thought process like? What is your mental emotional state that's contributing or creating your physical problem? We've got it all backwards.
Yeah, it is funny how so many people, as you said, go physical first and never
100%.
actually think that, oh, I better go to the physio. I think, well, particularly hip issues, gut issues, they're so common amongst women. Obviously, hips is where we store guilt and shame. And it's like, hang on, how could it be that I've had people come to me and they've had hip and gut issues for 15 years, and they come and do the work on themselves, and magically it just disappears overnight sometimes. You're like, what does that tell you? I'm sure you have those stories, don't you, all the time, of pain that magically disappears?
Mate, one of the best ones I heard that nearly gave me a bit of a teary, was a while ago. I had actually had a long-term client, and she worked her butt off in corporate, but was doing everything right. She would work out 6 times a week, had a personal trainer, would eat right, but always said that she could never understand why her body physically didn't look the way she thought it would, considering everything that she was doing correct by the book. And through kinesiology over time, what we unraveled is, believe it or not, it had nothing to do with her nutrition. It had nothing to do with her exercise. It actually had to do with a boyfriend that she dated when I think she was about 21, who basically put her down on how she looked physically. And that had created a subconscious program in like the way that she would see herself. Like, I'm the big girl, I've always got ahead, always have issues, this is how I'm always going to look. And when we cracked open that in the session, oh my God, the floodgates opened. It made her realize that her view of herself was really a view of how someone who thought less of her, and that's what had locked into her psyche. Does that make sense? So they thought I wasn't that great and therefore I'm not that great, and actually kept her bound up in her physical form because that's how she subconsciously thought she was like. Believe it or not, and I still am blown away with this, she lost 10 kilos later, and I think that was in 4 months or less than. Like, it just, and I was like, what? We didn't change. It had nothing to do with nutrition, nothing to do with exercise. It had to do with letting go of the story and the old trauma. So it's funny. I think Joe Dispenza even goes on saying 90% of disease in the body is created from your mental and emotional state. And when we say disease, it's not like, oh my God, I've got thyroid disease or I've got cancer or anything like that. I'm talking about disease, meaning it's not balanced. There is a disruption in harmony, and that's what then creates your physical symptomology.
And even, what Joe often says is that it may be the mental and emotional that puts the shoulder out, and then the biomechanics kick in, and then your shoulder's out and you'll compensate with your knee. So then you're going to get a sore knee that, yes, that's physical, but it's as a result of the shoulder that's got all the stuff trapped in it.
One,
It's just
100%.
it's crazy. So this is what I love, is when we get to actually do this work. And as you said, earlier on, you said that we come with everything that we need, and we hear so many of these. They're almost magnets and, affirmations that, you are the only thing in your way. But the more I do this work, the more I see that you have everything that you need and you are the only one in your way. So while we might blame the job or the partner or the economic circumstance, more often than not, it's us, isn't it? Like just locking ourselves up.
100%. And I've also been guilty of doing that as well. Hence the reason why I get kinesiology sessions done on myself as well. That's our human, that's really our human mind, isn't it? Like that victim mentality. It's easy to blame everyone else instead of looking exactly at ourselves. And over the years of going on this journey, that is probably what I've been forever grateful with going down the kinesiology path. You see, unlike many modalities, in order for people to learn kinesiology in the form that I do, you have to learn every protocol, every procedure. And not only do you have to learn that, you have to experiment, I shouldn't say experiment, but you have to practice that on fellow students and on other people. And you also have to experience it yourself, which basically means you have to sort, or you get to sort all your shit out for like the first 12 months of even learning to become a kinesiologist. But the best thing of that is it means you're not projecting your own stories onto other people.
Yeah. Well, that's the first place, even as a coach, that you have to start, like you said, because if you've got, that was a bad session, what does that mean about me? Then you're going to completely get in the way. So often the best way to start your spiritual journey or to grow is to start your own business. So to become a coach, to have a role where you have to sort your own shit out. I mean, this is even what they talk about from a leadership perspective. You have to start off by leading yourself.
100%.
So it's everywhere. Otherwise, you're projecting and everyone's just going to vomit all their stuff back on you because you're saying, bring it on.
Well, so true. And there's one thing I actually have come to learn, I think from the students that I've had the privilege of teaching over the last few years, is that the more human you are and the more you're actually able to share, hey, you know what, I've walked this road. I've been down this is what I can feel. People, they want to be able to relate to you. They want to be able to go, oh my God, you speak my language. You've experienced this. You know what, and look at where you are now. Okay, I know this is possible. And so I think too often in society we think everything has to be very polished and everything has to be very perfect, when really every time you try and go and do that, you actually make yourself not less attractive to other people. I would say you lessen your ability to allow other people to be able to connect with you. So you lose that magnetism. And so I think if anything on this wonderful journey, it's almost like taught me more and more, you have to be able to just be your own unique self. And if you even try and steer clear on that, well, should I say stray off that path and even try and think you're going to be a snippet of someone else, I guarantee you, so there's like a higher power or another guy that comes in and goes, oh no, you're not, and it smacks you down.
Yep. Yeah. Big word, authenticity. But you're right, especially in a social media glossed world, it can be very easy to, and I mean, perfectionism is rife. Perfectionism, particularly amongst women, is a chronic issue because they're worried about being seen as being vulnerable or as not being perfect. But as you said, the beauty is when you do the work on yourself, you can actually embrace your quirks and your weirdness, and everybody loves you more for that rather than less.
That's where the gold is. And you know what, I think a lot of people, we're all human, right? What do they always say? Like you're a soul and a body, but on the outside, this is a human form. And so you've got to be gentle on your human form sometimes, because if someone else is trying to have a go at you, maybe it's also a reflection of they're seeing something in you that they would love. So that's, you kind of got to, learning to take the judgment off has probably been the most beautiful and very fascinating part of this journey. Learning to be able to just meet people with where they are. And I guess instead of judge, be in a space of, my favourite space to be in is just be in a space of open curiosity. And so question, I wonder how you got to how you are, or I wonder where does this come from, or where have you evolved from? And so what I've found over the years, working with so many different types of people from so many different backgrounds, I've always been pleasantly surprised. And I've allowed myself to consistently be pleasantly surprised with human behaviour and understanding where people are at. And I think me prior to that, God, probably in my early 20s or when I was 18, I was probably more sarcastic and more judgmental then. But I'm more humbled now with people.
Yeah, you mentioned being a soul in a human body. How has your understanding of spirituality opened up as you've gone on this journey to understand energy and move away from things that make sense and, embracing your witchy skills and expanding them even?
Well, I guess the first thing to clarify is the word spirituality is different for everybody. And so some people would use the word spirituality as, okay, they may align it with religious beliefs or energy beliefs or godlike beliefs or something like that. For me, spirituality is my ability to be able to feel, connect to myself, and also feel and connect to the greater world or greater things around me. And so as I've learnt more about who I am, my journey through growing up, and really going on this wonderful energy modality being kinesiology, I've become a lot more sensitive to my environment, to the people I give my time with. But not only that, from a beautiful level, I've become a lot more sensitive to connecting with nature and the world around me. And so it's funny, I never feel alone. I love being more in my own space than I ever have before. And what I find is the more you evolve, the more you just start to become acutely aware of what you put in your body, who you socialize with. And old habits seem to just fall away by the wayside. I think the more that you learn and you grow and you become more energetically connected.
Yeah, yeah. And as you said, spirituality can be a loaded word, it can be a divisive word. But like you, I think as you go on this journey to discover more about yourself, the amount of coincidences and intuitive nudges, or you start stringing them all together and go, maybe that's not a coincidence. And maybe this is connected, and maybe I'm connected to that person. And I feel like I've just met this person, but I feel like I've met them before. It opens up such curiosity to there being more than just us here in this 3D world. So it's a fun journey to explore.
100%, and I think I've learned to listen to my body more. I've been very blessed to have been introduced to a lot of different energy spaces. So by that I mean, yes, I'm trained in kinesiology, but I had a dear colleague. I watched her evolve, even though she was doing kinesiology, and she went down the shamanic route. And I was curious about what she was doing, so I started doing some shamanic work. But for me, it wasn't about being a shamanic practitioner. It was about more evolving myself, finding out what my gifts were, and being able to have a deeper connection to myself and my environment around me. So then I can create my own things from a beautiful space that's really authentic. But even throughout that journey, I've learned there's a wonderful guy. Oh, let me think of his name. It'll come to me when I think of it. And he's helped me reconnect. Doing his meditations and part of his programs on Mind Valley have really helped me connect to my higher self and be able to connect to my spirit body. So when you're actually creating material from a female perspective, we're not stuck in our mental mind. You're energetically tuning into what feels right. Is it a priority for now? Is this something I can do later? And you can sort of communicate to your higher self. And when you do, I mean, it probably sounds a bit funny when I'm explaining it like this, but being able to connect with yourself mentally, emotionally, energetically, and spiritually allows the funnel of creation to come through from a completely different perspective and put you back into flow state instead of doing your own heading and trying to go into force state.
Yeah, and this is this beautiful gift of intuition, whether you call it ideas, sparks, downloads. This is what I love. And I think when women can connect to this, the speed with which we can create is epic, without force, without hustle, and it gets to be easy. That's one of the greatest gifts that I have certainly learned, and I hope to pass on to others, is that we don't have to push and grind and work 80 hours a week to make it work.
100%. Well, what do they say? The balance masculine and feminine is. The feminine is allowing the funnel of creation to come through. Then the masculine is then being able to methodically put steps in place to then materialize that. And so if you look at it from like that sort of standpoint, there's your balance right there. It's just allowing ourselves to have that beautiful marriage of the two, to really bring that together and embody all of that instead of have to be one way or the other.
That's what it's all about. It's all about balance, hence my company's name.
Appropriately named, I must say.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Well, Claire, thank you so much for spending time with us today. It's been beautiful to hear your perspectives. Any parting words for anybody who maybe wants to learn a little bit more about kinesiology or about you?
Well, parting words if you want to know more kinesiology. I would say if you really want to go on a wonderful journey well, actually, let me rephrase this with two things. I teach kinesiology, so if you want to be a brilliant kinesiologist, I can show you how to do that within 12 months. But if you want to be one of about 70 in the world with being a kinesiopractor and have over 365 different skills where you can help people connect with themselves and heal, then I can take you on a 5-year journey for that one as a kinesiopractor. But if you would just to love, which is what I taught you, some energy tools, well, you can learn how to muscle test. You can learn how to understand the minute movements of your body to find out what's aligned with you and what's not. And to also, if you're working with clients, to find out what the emotion is and what's going on with your clients so you can help them shift from A to B to C to D and really fast track their growth. Then I've created a little short course for that as well. So yeah, I've kind of tried to cater for all things because I love what I do so much. And I want to be able to give people energy tools or teach brilliant kinesiologists. That's what I do now. If you'd love to know more about that, you can head to the Northern School of northernschool.com.au, or otherwise known as the Northern School of Kinesiology, or you can just privately message me and ask me what's on offer.
I love it. And we'll be sure to put your Instagram handle and your website and everything down in the show notes. So if you're interested in learning more, do reach out to Claire. She's an absolute legend. She's a lot of fun and is a beautiful example of how to bring your full self to what you do. So thank you, Claire, for sharing. And
thank you so much.
Sure people will get in touch soon.
Thank you very much. It's so sweet of you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us today on the Balance and Beyond podcast. We're so glad you carved out this time for yourself. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend who might need to hear this today. And if you're feeling extra generous, leaving us a review on your podcast platform of choice would mean the world to us. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the Balance and Beyond podcast.